Welcome. Take a moment to let the day fade. Let the weight of unfinished tasks, noise, and tension fall away. You've carried enough. For now, there's no need to perform or to plan, only to rest, to breathe, and to listen. Tonight's story is one of memory and meaning. It's a final chapter told by a quiet leader whose life was marked by courage, discipline, and faithful obedience. It's not a tale of war or conquest, but of reflection, a moment where a man invites his people to remember who they are, and who they belong to. It's the story of Joshua, no longer the young commander who led the Israelites into the promised land, but an aged leader, his hands worn with time, his voice steady but slowing. This is the end of his journey. And before he lets go, he wants his people to hold tightly to the most important truth they've been given, the covenant with their God. This is the story of a nation called to choose, one last time, the God who has never stopped choosing them. This is the story of a covenant renewed. Joshua 24. Let's begin. Joshua was old. His body had slowed, but his memory had not faded. He remembered Egypt. He remembered the sting of slavery, the cries in the night, the murmurs of doubt, and the first crack of hope when Moses returned to lead them out. He remembered the plagues, the fear in Pharaoh's eyes, the blood on the doorposts, the night they walked away free. He remembered the Red Sea. He remembered how it looked, walls of water rising like glass, held up by a power greater than any sword. He remembered the desert. The wandering. The aching hunger and the strange, sweet bread that appeared with the dew. He remembered the times they doubted, the times they rebelled, the times they cried out again and again, and how every time, God answered. He remembered Moses, his fire, his strength, his sorrow. He remembered standing near the mountain, watching the smoke curl around it, the sound of thunder rumbling through the stones. He remembered the tablets, the golden calf, the moments when they nearly threw it all away. He remembered stepping forward when others stepped back. When the spies were sent into Canaan, he remembered the fear on their faces when they saw the giants. He remembered Caleb's boldness, and his own quiet certainty. He remembered the people's panic, the long delay, 40 years of waiting for a generation to pass. And then, the Jordan River. The moment the waters stopped flowing, and the people walked across again, dry and astonished. A new beginning. He remembered Jericho. The quiet march. The trumpets. The shouts. The walls falling not by might, but by obedience. He remembered Ari. The mistake. The pain of failure. And the return to discipline, to listening. He remembered the battles that followed, not always glorious, not without cost. But each one shaping them, teaching them, binding them together. He remembered the land being divided, tribes claiming their portions, families planting new roots in a land long promised. And now, here they were. Settled. Safe. Surrounded by the fulfillment of what once seemed impossible. Joshua felt the weight of years. He knew his time was drawing to a close. But before he could rest, he needed to say something. Not about himself. Not about what they owed him. But about God. About everything God had done. So he called them together. From every tribe, every corner of the land, leaders and elders and heads of households gathered in the sacred city of Shechem. It was a place of history. A place where God had first promised the land to Abraham. A place where Jacob had buried foreign idols beneath an oak tree. A place where Israel had renewed their commitment before. A place where choices had always mattered. Joshua stood before them. His voice was slower now, his words careful, but his presence was steady. He didn't begin with praise. He didn't ask for loyalty. He told them a story. Their story. And he told it in God's voice. Joshua stood in front of the crowd, his eyes sweeping across the faces before him, elders with weathered hands, young warriors still learning to listen, mothers with children at their feet. All of them bore the marks of journey, of faith, of failure, and mercy. And then Joshua spoke, not as himself, but as the voice of the Lord reminding his people who they were. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. He paused to let the word settle. Long ago your ancestors, including Terah the father of Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates River and worshipped other gods. But I took your father Abraham from that land and led him throughout Canaan and gave him many descendants. The people listened in silence. They knew these names: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. But it was different hearing them like this. This wasn't just history. It was heritage. I gave him Isaac, Joshua continued, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. I assigned the hill country of Seir to Esau, but Jacob and his sons went down to Egypt. The rhythm of memory moved forward. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I afflicted the Egyptians with what I did there, and I brought you out. There was no dramatization in his voice, just weight. The sacred weight of remembering. When I brought your people out of Egypt, you came to the sea. The Egyptians pursued them with chariots and horsemen. But they cried out to me, and I put darkness between you and the Egyptians. I brought the sea over them and covered them. You saw with your own eyes what I did. Joshua's voice softened as he walked through the desert years. Then you lived in the wilderness for a long time. They all knew what that meant. The wandering. The testing. The waiting. I brought you to the land of the Amorites who lived east of the Jordan. They fought against you, but I gave them into your hands. I destroyed them before you, and you took possession of their land. There were nods among the people. Some had fought those battles themselves. Others had only heard the stories from fathers and uncles around campfires. Then Balak son of Zippor, king of Moab, prepared to fight against Israel. He sent for Balaam son of Beor to put a curse on you. But I would not listen to Balaam. So he blessed you again and again, and I delivered you out of his hand. That part still felt miraculous. A prophet sent to curse them instead became a mouthpiece for blessing. Then you crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. The citizens of Jericho fought against you, as did the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites, but I gave them into your hands. I sent the hornet ahead of you, which drove them out before you. Also the 2 kings of the Amorites. Joshua paused again. You did not do it with your own sword and bow. That part was important. It wasn't strategy or might that had brought them here. It was God. So I gave you a land on which you did not toil and cities you did not build. And you live in them and eat from vineyards and olive groves you did not plant. He let those words settle like the dust of the wilderness they had left behind. This was grace. This was inheritance. This was promise, kept. And now, standing in the land that had been given, it was time for response. Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. The tone shifted, not harsh, but full of clarity. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Then he added a line that would echo long after the gathering was over. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. It wasn't a command. It was a call. Whether the gods of their ancestors or the gods of the Amorites, they would have to choose. And then, as if anchoring everything in a single breath, Joshua said, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." The people did not hesitate. Their voices rose together, not as a roar, but as a unified breath. "Far be it from us to forsake the Lord to serve other gods," they said. It was the Lord our God himself who brought us and our ancestors out of Egypt, from that land of slavery. He performed those great signs before our eyes. They remembered too. Not just the miracles, but the mercy. He protected us on our entire journey and among all the nations through which we traveled. And the Lord drove out before us all the nations, including the Amorites, who lived in the land. Their words were clear, certain. We too will serve the Lord, because he is our God. Joshua listened carefully. He knew this was more than a declaration. It was a turning point. A moment where words needed to mean something. And so he replied, not with celebration, but with gravity. "You are not able to serve the Lord," Joshua said. "He is a holy God, he is a jealous God. He will not forgive your rebellion and your sins." The weight in his voice wasn't condemnation. It was caution. Because this wasn't about passion in a moment, this was about faithfulness over time. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, he will turn and bring disaster on you, and make an end of you, after he has been good to you. It was a hard truth. But Joshua had seen what forgetfulness could do. He had watched a generation pass away in the wilderness because they lost sight of who they belonged to. This generation, the one now standing before him, had seen miracles with their own eyes. But even that, he knew, wouldn't protect them from drifting. They had to choose. Again and again. Still, the people answered with resolve. "No. We will serve the Lord." Joshua looked into their eyes and saw more than words. He saw history. He saw promise. He saw people standing in the middle of what had once been only a hope. "You are witnesses against yourselves," he said, "that you have chosen to serve the Lord." "Yes, we are witnesses," they replied. "Now then," Joshua said, "throw away the foreign gods that are among you and yield your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel." It wasn't enough to say it. They had to act. To tear down the idols they had tolerated. To surrender not just their routines, but their hearts. And they answered, "We will serve the Lord our God and obey him." So Joshua made it official. He wrote down their words in the book of the law. And there, at Shechem, beneath the very tree where Jacob had once buried foreign idols, Joshua took a large stone and set it upright. "This stone will be a witness against us," he said. "It has heard all the words the Lord has said to us. It will be a witness against you if you are untrue to your God." The stone stood there, silent and solid. Not as a burden. Not as a warning. But as a reminder. A memorial. A quiet voice in the years to come, whispering of this moment, this choice. And then the people went home. To their towns. To their fields. To their ordinary lives made holy by the promise they carried with them. Joshua watched them leave. One by one, tribe by tribe, the people dispersed, some returning to the hill country, others to the valleys, the plains, the cities they had received by inheritance. Each of them carried with them the echo of the promise they had just spoken aloud. It was finished. Not in the way battles end, with noise and fire and exhaustion. This was a different kind of ending, still, sacred, whole. Joshua's work was done. He didn't ask for praise. He didn't call the people to remember him. He had only asked them to remember the Lord. And now, the man who had once led armies, who had stood before towering city walls, who had spoken words of fire and truth, now walked quietly back to his own home. A patch of land in the hill country of Ephraim. His inheritance. There, surrounded by the peace he had helped secure, Joshua laid down his days. He had lived long. 110 years. A life marked not by glory, but by faith. He died as he had lived, in quiet trust. And the people buried him in the land of his inheritance, at Timnath-Serah, in the hill country that rose into the sky like a final benediction. There was no great monument. No temple built in his honor. Only a resting place and a story remembered. A leader who never made it about himself. A man who, in his last breath, pointed others to God. After Joshua's death, something rare happened. The people remained faithful. Israel served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua, and of the elders who outlived him. Those who had personally witnessed all that the Lord had done for Israel. There was a kind of peace in those years, not because there were no troubles, but because there was memory. A shared memory of what God had done. And in that memory, there was unity. At around the same time, they buried another sacred trust. The bones of Joseph, carried all the way from Egypt, were finally laid to rest. For years, they had kept them. Through the plagues, the Red Sea, the wilderness wanderings, the battles, the settlements. Joseph's bones had been a quiet promise, wrapped in cloth and memory, reminding the people that one day, they would arrive. And now, in Shechem, on the very ground Jacob had purchased so long ago, Joseph was buried. The journey was complete. What had begun in slavery had ended in freedom. What had begun with a dream had ended with a promise fulfilled. The story of Joshua ends not with celebration, but with peace. Not with power, but with presence. His life had never been about building his own name, but about pointing the people of Israel to the one who had always been faithful. And even in death, Joshua's legacy wasn't carved in stone or etched in gold, it was carried in the memory of a people who had seen miracles, received mercy, and stood on the soil of promise. He was gone. But what he left behind mattered more than any monument. He left a decision, a declaration, a call to serve the Lord. And for a time, the people remembered. Sometimes we think of strength as the loudest voice in the room, the biggest win, the most visible power. But Joshua showed a different kind of strength. The kind that listens before it leads. The kind that walks in quiet faith. The kind that doesn't seek attention, but truth. He was brave, yes. But more than that, he was faithful. He obeyed even when the path was unclear. He trusted even when the waiting stretched for years. And when his time came to lead, he did not hesitate. He stepped into the role not with pride, but with purpose. To serve. To guide. To remind. The final image we have of Joshua isn't of a man fighting battles or standing on a mountain. It's of a man looking into the eyes of his people and saying, simply and sincerely, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." That sentence, not shouted, but offered, has lived longer than any battle won. Because it speaks to what faith truly is. Not just what we say we believe, but the way we choose to live. Day after day. Quietly. Steadily. With our eyes fixed not on what we've built, but on who has carried us. So maybe, as this story settles in your heart, you're invited to reflect on your own yes. Not a dramatic one. Not a perfect one. But a sincere one. Like Joshua's. Maybe there's a quiet space in your life waiting for that declaration, not shouted into the world, but whispered in the stillness. As for me and my house. Not as a demand. Not as a rule. But as a return. A reminder that you are already seen, already called, already loved by the same God who never left Joshua's side. Tonight, let this story be a stone for you, not a burden, not a warning, but a witness. A place to return to when the days grow foggy. A simple truth in the noise of the world. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. The same God who led a people out of slavery, across seas and deserts, through battles and cities, that God is still near. Still faithful. Still leading. Still inviting. So now, as the day draws to a close, may your heart rest in the quiet strength of Joshua's story. Let it calm your thoughts. Let it steady your breath. And as you drift into sleep, may peace go with you, the kind of peace that doesn't come from knowing every answer, but from trusting the one who walks with you through every step. Good night. And may you always remember whose you are.